Welcome to MCN and welcome to the launch of the new MV Agusta Enduro Veloce. So this sort of kicks off a new era for MV Agusta. So there's now a 50.1% stake in MV Agusta by the Pierre Mobility Group. So that's the same brand that has KTM, Gas, Husqvarna, WP suspension. It's a huge operation. And in doing that, they're just trying to shake things up a bit. They're trying to give a bit more dealer support, a bit more support on parts. And I've been speaking to the guys and girls at MV, and their target for 2024 is to have 12 dealers in the UK. So they're trying to put in some big moves. I wanted to get that out of the way first because obviously that is a sticky point in the UK. There's been a lot of issues with people getting parts, with dealer support. So that's what they're looking to work on. They're looking to get 12 dealers by the end of 2024, and the new MVs as well come with a 4-year warranty. So that's a big step from MV. At the time of filming, they haven't actually confirmed the price. So although when they released it, they said it's going to be £21,800, they've literally come up to me a few minutes ago and said, that's not going to be the price. It's actually probably going to be a bit less, somewhere between 21,200 and 21,600. But whichever way you shake it, that is big money for a sub-litre adventure bike. It was quite strange because obviously we get the presentation where they show us all of the specs, they show us what's gone into the bike, all of the tech specs, everything like that. And so they compared it to quite a strange array of bikes. So I've written them down here. They had the Multistrada Pikes Peak, because it's special and sporty. They had the R1300 GS, because it's a benchmark of tech and big adventure bikes, and it sits in a similar price range. And also to the 890 Adventure, due to its off-road skills. So MV are looking to place this bike that spans everything. To me personally, I look at it, out of them bikes, the 890 Adventure makes the most sense, just because of the wheel size, because of the nature of it, the capacity, the specifications. But personally, having ridden all of the sub-litre middleweight adventure bikes, I'd say the closest on first look is the Desert X. It's got a similar retro style. It's not far off in terms of power to weight ratio. It's got a bit more power, but a bit more weight. It's got that similar Italian vibe to it. It's got a 21-inch front wheel. It sort of looks like it's going for the same thing. But after riding it today, we've done probably just shy of 150 miles. It's completely different to them all. If I could sort of sum it up in one sentence, it feels like a super sport bike in a set of high heels. So we're going to start things off with the engine. It's a 931cc inline triple. The headline figures you're looking for are 124 horsepower and 75 foot-pound of torque. So in terms of like the sub-litre category, it is the most powerful of the lot. Although it essentially started life as the old 800 engine, like nothing is the same. It's not just gone bigger in capacity. They have made huge changes just to give it a bit more of a meatier mid-range, make it a bit more accessible, because the Brutalis, the Turismo Veloce, the Super Veloce, that 800cc motor just had very little in terms of the bottom and the mid. It just wanted to rev, and on a bike like this, it doesn't work. But this new engine is sublime for a sporty ride. It is so exciting. It feels so fast. You could quite easily put it up against bikes like the Africa Twin. It's almost aggressive in its delivery of torque. So you get over 80% of torque from 3,000 RPM onwards, and you can really feel that. No matter what gear you're in, it just pulls like a train. Although it sort of runs out a little bit at the top, whereas the old 800 used to be revvy, it suits the chassis and the riding style to perfection. It has such an incredible noise. In fact, I'd go as far as saying it's probably one of, if not the best sounding motorbikes you can buy today. How MV have got it through Euro 5 is just beyond me, because it has such a deep, crisp roar to it. You really hear it when you're on it. It feels almost like it'd be too loud to even pass a UK track day, but it's so engaging and it just makes you want to ride it so hard just to get that sound. You get a mixture of induction, a mixture of exhaust noise. It's just a bog standard exhaust and it sounds incredible. And another thing that adds to that is the quick shifter. When you're going up and down the box, it feels almost like a really, really good aftermarket shifter. It doesn't feel like an OE piece. It's like the shifter that you put on a race bike. It's really positive up and down the box. You get like a really nice click, and it pops and bangs. It makes that glorious noise when you're changing gear. And to be honest, that sort of translates through the bike. The engine feels almost like a super sport bike in its urgency. It's happy to be docile. It's happy to be sitting, you know, 5th and 6th gear, 5,000 RPM, just pull in and it'll pull. But realistically, it just feels like it always wants that little bit more. And when you ride that engine hard, that's when it's most rewarding. It's a glorious, glorious triple, and going from 2nd, 3rd, 4th gear, if you're doing tight and twisty roads, it is incredible. But if you're buying an adventure bike, that's not been the stereotypical thing that you look for, is it? So we did just shy of 150 miles, got a 20 litre tank, and it struggled to get above 40 miles per gallon. So to put that into perspective, you're looking at under 200 mile range for a reasonably spirited ride. On top of that, it is a bit buzzy, so you do get a bit of vibration through the bars and pegs, and if you're sitting at 70 mile an hour, it is a little bit loud, a little bit noisy. It's perfect for short, sharp rides, but if you was going to spend all day on it, I think the motor might grate on you a little bit. So keeping in with the whole MV ethos, the engine is incredibly sporty. We also got to take it off-road, and it sort of translates that way as well. Although there's different rider modes that soften off the power and the torque delivery, it's still a really feisty motor. So we just did some small, tight and technical stuff, and 1st, 2nd gear, you sort of get nothing, and then it just fires in. It's really fun, but it's also not the easiest throttle to manage when you're off-road, even in the off-road modes. But then again, I do wonder, if you're spending over 21 grand on an adventure bike, how many people would want to take it off-road? The engine is capable, it's happy, it will do it, but it's better for a more experienced rider. I've done quite a lot of miles on adventure bikes, and I found it almost overwhelming in its sheer delivery of power. But the engine isn't everything, and the handling is one of the things that surprised me most about this bike. So when you jump on something with a 21-inch front wheel, you sort of lose that really crisp feeling on the front end when you're changing direction. When you're really enjoying your favourite roads, you just lose that sensitivity. But somehow MV have retained this with their Enduro Veloce. At fast speeds, it is a stunning machine to ride. It feels like almost like a big supermoto in its agility. The stack suspension, it's a bit frustrating that it's not electronically adjustable or semi-active, but it feels incredible on the roads. You can really plant the front end in when you're riding hard. You get so much feedback. And even though MV Agusta pointed out that they haven't fitted a steering damper, it's incredibly stable as well. It goes any way you want it. You can load the front brake into a corner. You can do pretty much anything you want on it. You can ride this bike near enough as hard as a naked bike, and it just somehow comes up trumps. But part of that's also down to the counter-rotating crankshaft. So it means that changes of direction are just sublime. It really is an agile beast. At slow speeds, it does suffer a little bit. Now, when I looked at the spec sheets for this, I saw the dry weight was 224 kilos. So as soon as you stick 10, 15, 20 litres of fuel in it, all your oils, suspension oil, everything else, that really adds up. And when you get on it fully fueled, it does feel like a heavy bike at a standstill. I'm quite short, I've only got a 28-inch inside leg. Like moving it around when it's fully fueled, like really slow speed stuff, you can feel that weight a bit. When you're going, you feel absolutely nothing. It feels like it's half that. But just for slow speed maneuvers, you do get a bit of the weight. And off-road, it's still quite a hefty beast. It's more than capable. And for someone who's really good off-road, it would be absolutely brilliant. But for my below average skill set, I sort of felt like I was chasing a bit, felt like I was struggling a little bit with it, and they actually softened off the suspension settings and put some Bridgestone AX41 off-road orientated tyres on it as well. So it wasn't as if it was just the Bogo standard bike on A41 road tyres. So if you're looking at doing a bit of off-roading, it's great, it can do it. It's definitely not the best in the sector, and I'd probably go to this last, if I'm honest. It's 21 grand, it's quite heavy, it doesn't give you the feel, and it's quite aggressive. So if off-roading's your thing, I would not recommend the Enduro Veloce. Like we said earlier, how much is going to be taken off-road, I can't really see it. It's going to be made for big miles and long rides and fun rides. And the cockpit is a really spacious place. It feels like it's made for someone bigger. Like, you know, if you're 6 foot tall, you've got big arms, big legs, it's really spacious. For a small rider, because you sit in it, there's actually quite a long reach to the bars. After a day of riding, you're actually fully extended and you almost feel like you want it to be a bit further in, a bit smaller, a bit more compact. But that's a problem that not many people will have. And that's probably down to the seat height as well. This is 870, I've had it on 870 all day, but it can be lowered to 850. So it's a really low seat height for an upper middleweight adventure bike. And in doing that, you sort of sit in it and your hands are quite high up. It's comfortable, but it's very roomy. Another thing to add as well is that the seat is comfortable for a couple of hours, but after that, it does feel very hard. I'd like a bit more padding on it. I'd almost rather have an extra 10mm seat height and a bit more padding, because after 2 hours in the saddle, you really start to move around. I wouldn't like to do a long motorway journey on it, because I think I would start to get really uncomfortable really quickly. And that goes hand in hand with the vibes through the bars and the pegs. You could do a couple of hours on, stop, get a coffee, but as a serial mile muncher, there are better bikes out there. Now, you heard me correct when I said earlier that this is over 21 grand. You'd expect to get a lot for your money, and electronically, it does come pretty stacked. You get a big old TFT that powers a whole host of rider aids. So you've got 6-axis IMU, covers traction control, ABS, front lift control. It's got everything that you could ask for from a modern bike. So in a bit more detail, there's actually 8 settings of traction control as standard. So 5 on road, 2 off road, run rain. But that actually translates into 16. So this bike is homologated with Bridgestone A41 tyres, road going tyres, but you can put the homologated AX41s on, which are treaded, they're more off-road biased, and the traction control can be calibrated to then have different settings to utilise that tyre, which is quite interesting. The ABS is switchable, so you can turn the ABS off at the rear, you've got to leave it on at the front, and it also has a really nice cruise control system as well. So it's really easy to operate. It's just one button you hold. The lever's really nice to go up and down, and it's really smooth in its intervention as well when you turn it off. Instead of having to brake, you can just roll the throttle. So it's just really nice little things like that I've really enjoyed on this bike today. That, the cruise control, and the fact that even with the quick shifter, you can go up the box off the throttle, and you can also go down the box on the throttle. So it's quite a nice little touch that you don't actually get on all bikes. And talking of which, it also comes with launch control as well. I love sports bikes, I love going fast, really enjoy it, but to me it just seems a bit pointless. You can launch this bike perfectly fine without it. You get 3 goes at it. I engaged it earlier just to see what it was like. And if you're a sports bike fan, you sort of want that launch control where it sort of holds it at 8,000 or 9,000 RPM and holds it on a hard limiter and makes that really nice noise. It doesn't do that. So it seems like a bit of a pointless exercise to me, but it's another touch, it's another feature, it's something that its competition doesn't have, and clearly MV are looking to make this bike sporty, and that's what they came up with. Now, one thing I do want to touch on is the actual finish on it. The paintwork and stuff's lovely. The seat work looks gorgeous, it's got like really nice like detailing on that, but the actual switch gears and the finish in the cockpit aren't as premium as I'd expect. The switch gears almost feel a little bit cheap. The plastics are quite soft. It's not the finest switchgear setup that I've used. And to be honest, I was expecting something a little bit more special. When you're navigating the dash, it's quite simple to use when you get used to it. And it's really nice that you can change settings on the fly. Like you can take traction control off, ABS off. You can go from road to off-road. And it does all that well, but it's not the most intuitive system in the world. The keyless ignition's a bit slow when you hit the ignition button. And although I'm not a massive fan of rider modes, sometimes you just don't need them. I'd actually like a few more on this bike. I'd like a bit more disparity between them. So you get 4, you get touring, urban, off-road and custom all-terrain, but you can actually go in and change the settings in the different rider modes as well. And I'd just like an urban mode to be a little bit softer on the throttle pickup. I'd like the off-road to be a bit softer. And I sort of was looking earlier for a sport mode because that's just my natural go-to, especially on something that's marketed as being really sporty. And touring is the one, and that's the most aggressive. I'd like almost a sport mode, a touring mode, an urban mode, and then a wet mode, and just a bit more disparity between them. If you want to be riding hard and riding fast, it's great, but if you want something that's a little bit calmer, there are better alternatives out there. So this wasn't quite what I was expecting. Is it worth the over 21 grand price tag? Well, that's a subjective question, isn't it? If you want an adventure bike with an MV badge on the side, with hopefully what they say, we're yet to see, but they're putting a lot of money and a lot of time into it with more dealer support, more parts support, and a proper warranty, then yeah, you can knock your socks off. If that's something that you want, this bike is an incredible machine to ride on the road. It is sublime. In fact, it's probably one of, if not the most capable road bikes with a 21-inch front wheel that I've ever ridden in my life. But it just doesn't have the poise to be that all-round king. It's an incredible machine, and I'm glad MV have built it, and they've got so much more in the pipeline. But if you want to do a bit of off-roading, a bit of touring, there are better bikes out there.